guys, it's Sugar, and my husband Jeff.
Hello.
I was just introducing myself, and I was like, why? I'm forgetting something.
That's all right.
I'm a little tired tonight. It's my own bad. Tonight we were going to talk about, we go on different websites like GameFAQs, Reddit, the YouTube channel, you name it. We go through different questions, and there were a couple of questions that people kept positing, and we thought we'd kind of try and answer it if it's possible. And if there's no answers to be had, well, we'll just try and do our best. And they're all going to relate to My Hero Academia.
Yeah, this podcast at least. Who knows?
No, forever the podcast will be My Hero Academia. Nothing else. This is it.
We could do a weekly on My Hero Academia between
could.
the anime and the manga.
I just like this is a one-person podcast of like when Peter Griffin is like the hats. It's like I'll name all the quirks that were in this week. There was Eraser.
Now his quirk allows him to
just break out every single one of the.
You hear him like flipping through the pages. What did that do again?
Have the quick whenever people flip the pages while doing the podcast, and like, no. I know it fairly well enough that I shouldn't have to look it up, even if I did fumble. But anywho, the first question which we had posed was, is All Might a good mentor? Why or why not?
Yeah, as we've mentioned before, both Sugar and I are teachers, so this was a question that I thought about really hard, and I was like, we can actually bring something to it, you know?
Well, that's the thing, and the fact is somebody's like, he's the worst ever, and I was like, I don't think so.
No, oh God, no. I mean...
I can think of several instances where it's like, that's not the worst.
No, of course. And he definitely isn't the worst. He's a good mentor. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I would necessarily say that he's a great teacher. Mm-hmm. Instances in which we have seen him teach, he's been not bad. Mm-hmm. But we don't actually get to see a lot of him as like a classroom teacher. They kind of, the manga and the anime kind of gloss over it a little bit.
Well, they kind of just use him in the sense of kind of like outdoor ed, so to speak, where it's like, we're going to learn on the job, so to speak, and we're going to go outside and do it. He's not like the person to sit in class and be like, this is what you want to... Yeah, he's not Aizawa, he's not Midnight, where he can just sit there and be like, this is what you want to get from it, blah, 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 blah. It's like, if you have hands-on experience, you'll get what I'm trying to say. I don't need to tell you all this stuff, you'll just get it like I did. And I think that's kind of like, with some people with teaching, is the fact that it's not innate of like, I know how to teach, I know it. Like, it's I know everything, therefore I know how to teach. That's not always the way it is. It's like, even myself, where I was like, I am really good at math. But the second I had to teach it to somebody, it was like learning another language. It was like, how do I... How do I show them this? And that's the other hard obstacle for All Might, is like trying to teach something that isn't visible. It's like, oh yeah, there's this concept, and I've kind of explained it, but how do I put it into something that's tangible for you? And we see that with like Gran Torino, where he's afraid of Gran Torino, so obviously he's not going to teach like him. But you see with Deku that he has results where it's like, hey, if you think of it this way, maybe you can look at it differently. And that's exactly what happens when he's microwaving things in the microwave, where he's like, oh, well, the power has to be different. It has to be different kind of focus. And he understands that by having that kind of inference, where All Might doesn't know how to do that because
from what we've learned from the series so far, regardless of the fact, spoilers for the entire series up to current manga, I guess.
I think as soon as we're talking about anything in analysis, it becomes a spoiler. So.
But while he was quirkless before he was given One for All, he was still, by all accounts, an exceptional human being. Yeah. For being quirkless, he was still exceptionally strong. He had developed his body in a way that just suited One for All quite well. That's part of the reason why he would have been chosen to be given this gift in a way.
We don't know the whole story of why he was chosen, but...
whereas opposed to Deku, when he started, he was kind of a scrawny little nerd, I guess, if you want to say that.
Well, it's kind of like, I think that's what it kind of demonstrates when they handpicked Mirio for him. It's the fact of like, we already kind of have a decent vessel. He's pretty muscular. He's trained himself. He has control over his quirk. You know, he's like a really great candidate. But by the time he was like, no, I already decided.
Yeah. And so I think
he had some catching up to do.
Yeah. So in terms of him being a teacher, he seems to be somebody who he wants students, and especially Deku, but all of the students, to kind of figure things out on their own. And there is a method of teaching that does that. It doesn't happen too often in North American schools, but there are some programs which are totally designed on what a teacher will say is, these are the results you have to show. Figure out how you're going to show that to me. And they will students will be allowed to create their own ways of showing those results. And so, from a teacher's point of view, that seems to be the way in which All Might chooses to be a teacher is, this is the end result that you should be looking at. Now, find your way to get there. As opposed to other teachers who are very much, that was wrong, this is the right way to do that, you should do it this way. All Might would just be like, come at this from a different point of view. Think about how you would do this, as opposed to... And that's one of the main flaws, I guess you could say, in his teaching approach when it comes to Deku, because he gets this interesting dichotomy between, you know, All Might will tell him, like, you need to understand how to use this power in your own way, yet the very next sentence will be, remember, you are taking over for me in everything that I am. So Deku, in one sense, is being told, do things differently, figure things out. And then on the other side, he's being told, but remember, you are the next me.
Well, I think it's a way of saying, like, he might come on heavy, but it's a way of saying, like, you represent more than just a name, and you have to be something more than me, which is a tall order. It's the fact of, we see early on that he's trying to copy him in costume and everything else, where it's just like, you have to be something that is greater than myself, and you have to be something that's a pillar for the community to stand on, because they need that. So it's not just meeting his own expectation, he has to meet what All Might already is. And like you were saying, All Might is very much an A to B person, where he doesn't always think about the middle. He's gotten in trouble with that from Recovery Girl, because he's like, okay, I just want you to get to B, but he doesn't take into account that it can end up hurting Deku. So...
And that's
we've
seen that already happen.
Negligence. It's just the fact that he doesn't understand.
No,
that can happen.
I wouldn't ever say that he's negligent. He just, everything kind of came so innately easy to him. The analogy that I gave somebody is my sister is fantastic with mathematics. She has university degrees in math. Couldn't teach it worth a darn, because it just makes sense to her.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't make sense to somebody else, her reaction is, that's just how it works.
Yeah.
Why don't you get that? That's just how it works. Whereas, you know, I'm sitting here thinking, like, I don't get how that works, and she could never explain to me. She was helping me with my math. She couldn't explain to me why that works that way.
And that's the thing, it's just learning how to teach somebody. They always think that, oh, I'm skilled in this, therefore I can teach it. But that's not true. It's thinking about how someone else is hearing it for the first time. It's not like, oh, you can use the word, I don't know, plus ultra. If you said that to anybody, they'd be like, what the hell are you talking about?
Well, that's ultra!
It's like, you have to understand that. You have to break it down into, where did that come from? What does it mean? And once you have meaning behind what you're saying, it's more understandable.
And I think we also have to remember, All Might is going into, you know, our real life jobs. He's a first year teacher who has never in any way had any formal training at it at all.
He's just
I
there.
could not imagine. There's not a scenario in my head that I can think of where somebody could be put into that situation and innately be a fantastic teacher. It's something that you have to develop over years to fully understand how you're supposed to properly teach. Obviously, this is a bit of a different world where you're teaching superpowers and whatnot, but all the concepts are still there because they have an economy that they follow. They have a societal norms that they have to follow. They have a lot of rules and regulations and a lot of things that are tantamount
it's
to
a
ours.
lot more diverse though, because when you think about what we do, it's like, okay, teach math to other people, but it's a thing of trying to teach a power to somebody who has an inherently different quirk from somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, how do you teach them all the same thing? And
You can't.
that's the thing, and that's what you kind of run into in classrooms, except more intense with quirks, I'm assuming, where it's like, children learn differently. Some don't speak English as their first language. Some have learning disabilities, and you have to learn to adapt to that. And somebody who's first time doing it wouldn't understand that.
No.
It's just kind of like, why isn't everyone getting it? Because they don't. And everyone learns a different way.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first thing you learn is people learn visually, auditory, like orally, everything. People just learn differently. And so not everyone's going to be reached.
Yeah. And Deku is pretty much the only one that we watch. From the aspect of us being teachers, we understand how he
Deku
thinks.
is a very visual person. He sees things, he writes it down, he remembers it, that it's in his book, goes back, translates it, and then applies it. Which
is why he has a very difficult time getting away from...
So when it shows him, just do this, and he's like, what does that like quantify as? And it's like, this, this isn't a number or a word or a thing. It's not measurable.
Yeah, and it's, again, Deku is put into an interesting situation where he has to learn, instead of it being something that's natural to everybody else who has quirks, he has to learn what it's like to live with a quirk, as opposed to it being something that you activate. Yeah. He thought of it like a switch, and then it took Gran Torino and the use of a microwave to kind of realize, oh, no, this is something that has to be part of everything that I am now. It isn't a light switch that I turn on and off.
Right.
And that, All Might wasn't the one who showed him that. That was
Gran Torino.
That was Gran Torino. Is he a bad teacher? No, of course not.
He's just rough around the edges.
Yeah. He's a great mentor, though. He does all the things that you need to do to be a mentor. He's learning how to be a good teacher.
And I feel like he is somebody who has all the qualities to look up to, so I think he's already halfway there already. He has the charisma. He has the genuine nature. He's kind to others. He has this ability. And he's, I don't know, even as someone is, I want to say humble, but at the same token, he kind of gets in his own business too. So I think he knows how great he is. So it's a little bit of a humbleness and at the same time kind of a jokey nature. So
I think he's humble in knowing that he, as great as he is a cog in a machine that just needs a new cog.
Not even so much that, it's just the fact that he understands what his place is, so there's no point having ego when it's... things need to get done.
I think he would be the first probably to admit that there are some things that Endeavor should probably be doing instead of me, despite the fact I'm the number one hero and I stand for the pillar of, he's the public number one, but there are some things that Endeavor is going to be better at than he is, and he understands that better than anybody does.
Yeah. And I think they both, at times, obviously we see this in the upcoming arc, you haven't seen it yet, where he and Endeavor work together, and we see that it's possible, and that he puts, both of them kind of put their egos aside, but you'll see the fallout of that. But anyways, I don't know if there's much more to add to that question, so I think we've kind of said what we need to.
We have a unique, we have unique experience to talk about. He's not a bad teacher. No. He's rough around the edges. Especially for somebody like Deku, it's going to be difficult for him to understand where Deku comes from. But you see other times where he's teaching some of the other students who don't have that same hurdle that Deku has to jump over.
You mean,
and he's great at teaching
All Might.
Yeah.
Used Deku twice. That's why I was like, who's teaching who? I gotcha. Okay, so our second question is, why is Bakugo so likable?
Yeah, despite... It's an interesting topic to get into, especially, again, given our jobs and what we will see on a daily basis.
I don't know if this has so much to do with what we do, but in
general...
Well,
we see it and we stop it on a daily basis. We have to. Is that Bakugo, at his core, he's a great kid. Don't get me wrong.
He's
and
incredibly
almost all
sweet.
Kids are great kids. He is a bully. Yes. He's a bully to lots of people around him, and that's part of the reason why some people just don't understand how he can be likable. Some people see him as just a bully, and they don't think he's gotten his comeuppance yet, and that really pisses them off about his character. And that even now that he's mellowed a little bit, he's still a raging jerk, if nothing else. He might not be a bully anymore, but he's a jerk.
You know who I was thinking of, who he reminds me of, and I was like hanging and hawing over this question today, was the fact that he reminds me of Gordon Ramsay. And it's the fact that, and no, seriously, because like everyone thinks he's this huge bully, and don't get me wrong, he can be a bully, and he's said some terrible things, but if you meet him like genuinely or see him personally, it's the same with Bakugo. I feel like he is a genuinely sweet child, and we see that in the upcoming arcs where, of course, you haven't seen it yet via the anime, but from the manga's perspective, Bakugo has to, long story short, he gets kidnapped. And due to him being kidnapped, it results in the loss of All Might's powers. And he is crushed that this happened. And he is legitimately upset, and he apologizes to All Might. And we see this genuine, like, sympathy and empathy. And we also see him later, when he gets into odds with Deku, of the fact that he tries to help him in his own way of becoming a better fighter and to kind of bettering himself. And we also see that him giving kind of, can I say, harsh but true words to people to kind of push them to that level of what they can be. And I know everyone kind of likes to focus on the fact that he was a bully, but I find that, I don't know if he knows, especially not having any like genuine friends like Deku, how to be anything other than a bully, even if he means it in a nice way. You know what I mean?
I think that's justified.
Right.
He legit, like, you see it kind of in the off pages now and then, and in the background, he has a genuine friendship, I would say, with Red Riot.
Yeah.
But
which
part
is
of
so lovely. It's cute.
part of that though is you'll see him in the background, and he'll be like, smacking Red Riot over the head, trying, like, they're talking about homework or something, and he's like, "Why aren't you getting this?"
Yeah.
And like, bop bop bop. That's his way.
Yeah, that's his way. And I know people are like, "Oh, he's so abusive," but it's like he doesn't understand how to have legitimate friends, because everyone's like, "Oh, he's so great. That's why I'll be around him." It's kind of like being a movie star or something. It's like everyone kind of just seemed to drop away, where his legitimate friends now are trying to better him, and he's trying to better them as well. But it's kind of like one of those people that don't know what to do and are socially awkward, so they punch you in really odd situations, where it's like, I find that's him, because like we see again in another couple arcs later about when Kirishima, which is Red Riot, is kind of trying to understand what he wants to be. He thinks back to when Bakugo says something like really encouraging to him, and it just shows that he does care about people, and he just doesn't know how to portray that all the time, and sometimes it comes off a little gruffer, and he has a bit of a rage problem, which I can relate. I sometimes get upset, and then I get all barky like he does, but yeah, I don't know, I can understand why he's likable, and even in the sense of, obviously from the manga perspective, but even from the anime, I find that he's a very kind of neat design. He's kind of one of those people that seems like a hard ass, but deep down he's very like a sweetie. Like you've seen him with the Perfect Genist when he had his hair kind of slicked back, and it was kind of like one of those cute things where you see like a cat come out of the bathtub and you're like, oh, that's so cute, but I know he wants to kill me, sort of thing. And it's just a sweet moment, because and at the very heart of it is he's a child. Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, what's at the core of things, especially being an adult, where it's like he's a child.
Yeah. And part of the issue that comes up, the easiest comparison I can make is with Naruto and Sasuke, who you kind of see a similar dynamic with somebody who really desperately wants to be somebody's friend, and the other one is just kind of like, yeah, kind of, we're kind of friends, but I kind of want to do my own thing. Shut the hell up. Please go away. Leave me alone.
I find it, though, with Sasuke, it was hard to find things that were redeemable about him, because he just tried so hard to be miserable. Where Bakugo, I don't think he tries to be miserable. It's just the fact that he doesn't know how to be that social butterfly. He just knows to be, like, defensive and be like, I have an explosive... His personality kind of goes with his quirk of just being kind of explosive and kind of... I think that's kind of exemplified by his hair. It's everything about him is explosive. He's kind of like his mom, which is cute. You see upcoming here. But, yeah.
So, I would just say that people who say that he doesn't get his comeuppance, at the end of Naruto, Sasuke is proven to be wrong in his thought process, gets his comeuppance at the end. We're all relatively fine with that. In Boruto, he still shows he's
around.
he's still Sasuke. Yeah. He's still that kind of person.
Jerk, yeah.
But he's also that kind of person that you kind of need in order to maintain true peace.
Well, I find
Bakugo,
that Naruto, getting off topic here, but I find Naruto is very much very much optimistic, where Sasuke is like, this is really what's happening. You need to calm the hell down.
And Deku and Bakugo have a similar dynamic at times. The thing that lots of people who have said they don't like him, that they don't like, is they claim that he never really gets his comeuppance. Nothing bad has happened out of him.
He hasn't done anything terrible per se, except for the bullying. I'm not saying that's okay. I'm just saying they're making it akin to something like him murdering somebody. It's like, I hope he gets his comeuppance. Or it's like, he was a kid, he bullied. Again, like I said, he didn't have a lot of genuine friends, so he doesn't know how to be any other way. So I don't see, like, he deserves a comeuppance.
And I mean, the comeuppance he has gotten, because people said no, he hasn't, has been from the pro heroes. There's a reason why Best Jeanist kept telling him over and over again, like, this is how you have to basically behave in a certain way in order to be a hero. What you're doing, that's not cool. Yeah. Aizawa constantly, though he doesn't talk to him openly, is constantly in his head saying, like, I have to watch him. I have to impart on him,
and it's not
other ways to deal with what he's got going on.
And I like the way they set it up, because we find out obviously in the upcoming arc how they really feel, but like, they do it very clever in a way that they say that you are coming off like a villain, and they make it very clear in the upcoming arc. It's like, I don't believe he's a villain, I just believe he needs to act more like a hero. And that's the people misunderstand about him. It's just the fact that he's not a villain. No. It's just the fact that obviously he has a quirk, he has a personality of just like a psycho sometimes, and it's just like, you just have to understand that he just doesn't know how to go about it.
And we have to remember, like,
he's a child.
They're children. And it brings up an interesting thing that I was talking about with some other people, that this is a society that they live in that almost, it kind of allows people who are extraordinary to get away with that, because, how to phrase it, he is extraordinary.
Yeah.
Even if you compare him to other people who have quirks, you compare him to Class 1A, who is supposed to be the cream of the crop.
Well, it's never been stated so much that 1A is better than 1B. It's just kind of been... It's just been kind of observing that that's the case, but...
1A has been routinely better than 1B has.
And it's also been made clear, obviously, that huge names have submitted requests in for people like Todoroki and the Creationists, so there's a lot of weight behind these people.
And so, he is extraordinary, and in this world where you are largely going to be judged based on your quirk and what you do with it, he's kind of allowed to just be himself because he is an extraordinary person.
Yeah.
The reason why probably nobody came to Deku's aid is, unfortunately, Deku was kind of seen as an afterthought. He was quirkless.
Not even an afterthought, it's just the fact that he got picked on because he didn't have a quirk, and the fact that that's who Bakugo went after, so that's just how it is. It doesn't show anyone else picking on him so much. Like, they kind of razz him for wanting to go into UA, but it's the only one we see, other than the two guys with him, that they bully him, but...
Yeah, but I would feel that's part of the reason he tends to, like... We've never seen him be reprimanded for his treatment.
Well, no, of course not, because...
Deku. Now, that could be Deku doesn't defend himself, or Deku doesn't say anything, because he's like, I just want to be with my best friend Bakugo.
I wouldn't doubt it, because he's so, like...
But it also can be a reflection of, this is a society where you are based almost entirely on your quirk and what you do with it, and Bakugo has a strong quirk and knows what to do with it. So, he would most likely have been praised for showing strength because this is a society that they live in where you should show your strength. That's part of what heroes do, is they show their strength and they apply it to people who need it applied to. Not saying Deku ever deserved it. Nobody ever deserves to be bullied.
Applied to? What do you mean?
That you are ranked based on how good a hero you are, and sometimes how good a hero you are is dependent on how much damage you can do to another person.
I wouldn't say so, no.
The ability to stop them.
What? I don't understand, sorry.
They are in a society where they are ranked, they are judged entirely on their ability to be a hero. And part of
but that's taken into effect, not just the fact of how much shit you can blow up. It's the charisma, it's the speed, it's working with others, it's a lot of factors, not just the fact that he's OP.
But as well, that's still a huge factor in it. Gang Orca is one of the top, and his whole thing seems to be he is exceptionally powerful and can beat up most people.
Yeah, but he's also good at other things, like he can do anything really an Orchid can do, so he's both in water and on land. Mm. And he also has his own posse, and the fact that he is insanely intimidating, and the fact that people rely on them. So it's like, it's a whole other factor.
But it's just, I'm proposing that this is a society where your ability to do that is seen as a good thing, on the whole, as long as you're doing it against bad people.
I don't know. I don't think so in that sense. I think it's just bullying is bullying is bullying. It just is what it is. And I'm assuming people just turned a blind eye to it, and that's what that was. And yes, I agree with part of what you said, that obviously for a child especially, Bakugo had an insane talent and quirk. So that would be praised, and kind of other things would be by the wayside, and focusing more on praising him rather than other facets of who he really is. So no one really had to correct him on, like, hey, you shouldn't treat others like that, you should be like this, or you should, like, learn these other lessons, or, like, you can just coast by on being excellent, so what's the point of teaching you other things? It sounds like a terrible thing, but I've seen it so many times.
Yeah. It is a problem that I agree with you 100%, and I think it's just a problem that is inherent in the world that they're building, where you are judged a lot on your abilities rather than the kind of person that you are. Granted, because of the kind of person All Might is, that's the reason he is number one.
One of the reasons, And
why
Endeavor's
number two.
He has a bad...
He's bad attitude.
Bad attitude.
I mean, and it just shows that
that's not to say
history repeats itself. Bakugo, in a lot of ways, is his Endeavor.
Kind of.
Everybody's like, oh, well, Todoroki might grow up to be like his dad. No, Todoroki is going to be an entirely different person.
You never know with anime.
Bakugo could definitely be... He could be the number 2 to Deku's number 1. Deku says right at the start of the series, this is how I became the number 1 hero. So, obviously he's number 1. I'm assuming Bakugo is going to be number 2, and he's the more abrasive, more...
Who knows?
People don't love me as much, but there's a reason why.
Who knows? Like, we've seen lots of anime where it's like, we know what course it's going to take, and then all of a sudden somebody dies, or there's this horrible life lesson, and something terrible happens that shifts a person's character development. You never know. Based on what we've seen, we can assume that would likely, most possibly be the way it would go, but you never know.
Yeah, that's true.
So I guess in a way we kind of covered one of our questions, which is, we haven't covered it, but we kind of touched on it, is the hero ranking system. Is it a problem? And we haven't gotten a ton of information on the hero ranking system, but we've been given some people who are on the top 10 and what qualities they needed to be on there, but we don't really know how it's done in the sense of voting. Is it a democracy? Is it just the pro heroes? Is it all the citizens as well? Who has a say? Is it a problem? And it kind of leads into our next question of Stain.
Well, I guess we can talk about the ranking system a bit first.
Right.
This is the thing that, for everything that's happening in My Hero Academia, this is the one thing that I always talk to you about.
You do, and I'm like, I can't. It's like one of those people that's like, in a movie, you're like, what does that mean? You're like, I'm watching the same thing you are, I don't know. Where it's like, I love that people come to me with questions, especially Jeff, because I love My Hero Academia, but there's like we've only been given so much information, so I'm like, that's all I literally know. I'd like, you
Yeah,
read it as
I
well
mean,
now too, and like, I don't know.
We know the same amount, but I like to posit like all these different things, all these different inherent
And Jeff is very much
problems.
I want to say the word is like philosophical, where he's very much like, what if this? And I'm like, I need hard facts. If we have hard facts, I can explain to you if
you
that
are
would be
exceptionally
possible.
analytical, and
Yeah.
I tend to
Like
think in the ether a little bit.
The other day, I can't remember, you asked me something and it was very philosophical, and I looked at you and I was just like, I'll wait till I have more facts. It's like I'm not making a what if statement, because it could be anything.
But like we were mentioning, it can lead into the topic of stain and the fact that we were talking about a little bit before we started recording that we don't necessarily know how they are being paid, but that is something that the rankings would probably signify a difference in their pay. Mm-hmm. So there is an inherent, and we've seen it with other characters as well, other pro heroes who seem to be more
definitely
models.
We see that definitely during the mentorship, where we have people that are like Coast Guards, where we had Seal and we had Sue and all of them doing the Coast Guard and things like pirating and so forth. Then we get people that are like Uraraka, where she's with a total gun militia. Like, that's just what they do. Then you're with the Creationist, and I just mentioned her name. Class 1A's, Class 1B's class rep.
Isuka?
Yeah, sorry.
Itsuku?
Something like that. And where they're both doing kind of like commercials and modeling gigs, and like they are still heroes, but they aren't doing the generic hero thing. Like later they do go on patrol and stuff, but the majority of what they do is modeling and commercials and kind of being that brand. And what else? We had people like, I think kind of being like guards and stuff, like Tetsu and Kirishima, that were kind of like with that association. So it's hard to say how much pays more.
Ida went with a company that just kind of did
like general
basic
patrols,
patrol,
and
and
like
that they were kind of, it was almost like their whole thing was, well, we'll stop regular criminals, but as soon as a superpowered person comes along, we're going to just call for other people.
Yeah.
We'll try and do our best.
It's kind of like there's like a beat cop, and then we have your FBI and all that other stuff. It's kind of like that in the system, but it's like, you have to wonder if it's something like a normal system where every job just has its pay and that's what it is, or if it's more risk, more pay, if your ranking has to do with pay. We know it has to do with notoriety, which puts up your rank, which gives you more pay. But is that just from notoriety, or is that from the job itself? Because then All Might would be, hand over fist. And we kind of get an idea, like even in the bonus chapters, I believe, All Might's like, yeah, I'm on campus, but I also have a studio, and the studio isn't that great. Like, it's just kind of your basic studio. And they show them kind of cleaning up and so forth. But it's like, we don't see any of these people being incredibly wealthy. Like, we have somewhat of an idea with Endeavor. He has his own, like, agency where he has people working for people. And it's just kind of his organization. So is that a choice again, or is that money, or is that just,
how he works as a hero?
That's the thing.
We have...
And is it like a doctor's office where people pay people to be in that facility? You don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, Gran Torino, despite the fact that he taught All Might, he's basically almost entirely unknown. Endeavor comes across
like,
him and basically is like, get out of the way, old man.
Yeah.
I think he knows his name, but he was like, I didn't even think you did any of this anymore. And
yeah, he's like, I'm retired.
Despite how amazing Gran Torino is when you watch him like in action, like it seems like if he wanted to be, he could still be a top contender in the rankings if he really wanted to. He just, he didn't seem to ever have that desire, that drive. He still is a pro hero, but
I don't know if he would be top 10 just in the fact that his quirk is very limiting. Just the fact that Eric comes from his souls. He does have that power and he does have strength, don't get me wrong, but like when he's compared to like All Might, Endeavor, Gang Orca, we have like it's just huge comparison in like power and quirk value. It's totally different.
He was
Gang Orca is
pretty good against the Nomus for sure, which were giving a lot of other heroes troubles. He didn't seem to have any sort of problems.
But again, you're dealing with beat cops versus pros, and he's a pro.
Yeah.
So
potentially. So it's just it seems like there's so much variability in
it's one of those things that's such a huge world. It's
and it leads me to think about people who, like Sue, if you are focused on search and rescue, you're not going to get that notoriety despite how good you are at your job. And so if you don't have notoriety, does that automatically mean you couldn't make the top 10? Is there going to be some sort of... We've already seen that Endeavor and All Might have had a huge problem between each other because of who's ranked number 1. Does that continue down the line? Are there people who are mad because, oh, I'm ranked number 5 and you're ranked number 3, but I've solved this many cases. What have you been doing lately? Like, it seems to me that's where the question comes in, that if there weren't any rankings, if they were just like, they're just heroes, they all get paid based on, instead of notoriety and all these ranking systems, if they just got paid based on the inherent danger in what they're doing, let's say. I worked in a mine and I made a certain amount. People who were doing more dangerous jobs in that mine got paid more because it's more dangerous. They put their life potentially in jeopardy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in that sense, Sue going out to do search and rescue, unless it's in a hurricane or something like that, probably is not putting her life in jeopardy as much as somebody like All Might, who's going to fight every single superpowered being that happens to be committing crimes. And so that would kind of justify why somebody would maybe get paid more, but there wouldn't be an inherent ranking system which can kind of sow a little discontent.
But even, like, if you think of the whole situation with Ingenium, like, how would you mark that? How would he have gotten paid? Like, what would that have been? Would he have gotten a compensation or anything like that? Because it's like, he came in trying to protect the other heroes and then got maimed in the process. Like, I'm sure no one would have been like, you were definitely going to get maimed, here's a ton of money. Where it's like,
no, he would have gotten paid more after. I mean,
and he didn't stop him, so then does he not get paid then? Like,
no,
what
I mean,
happened?
he was involved, however, tertiary in the eventual captures. Well,
he wasn't involved in any way. He happened to be there. It's like me saying I stopped, like, I don't know, some serial killer when he stabbed me.
When it was actually your little brother that did it, you know? No, I'm wrong there. But there would be a danger pay that was inherent with the fact that he got jumped and now can no longer be a hero. I would assume there would be, like any job, some sort of severance pay for that.
I don't know.
That sort of thing. It just feels to me like...
It's kind of like the economics behind a good show. It's like, it's not always needed, but it's nice to know.
I wonder if they're gonna touch on it. I want them to discuss it.
It's gonna go on for a long time, and I found they've already touched on a lot of stuff like socioeconomic things. They've touched on drugs. They've touched on homelessness. They've touched on competition. They touched on friendship, rivalries, and a ton of stuff. Like, if this goes on for as long as I imagine it will, like, there'll be a lot of stuff to cover.
I mean, it will be...
Excuse me.
And arguably, you could say that there's always got to be some sort of carrot at the end, a way in which you can view the progression and growth of a character. And in most shonen, that is going to end up being some sort of a ranking system you can base yourself on. The original Dragon Ball, you desperately wanted to see Goku finally win the World Martial Arts Tournament.
Well, yeah.
And then what happens at the end of the original series? He wins and is deemed to be the strongest person on the planet. In Dragon Ball Z, in one of the arcs, it was a race to being a Super Saiyan. You had Vegeta and Goku, and which one's going to be the first Super Saiyan? In Naruto, it was Naruto desperately wants to become the Hokage. The Hokage is seen as the most well-respected and powerful ninja, and that's, we want to see that happen with Naruto. So
then we saw it with Kakashi first.
Yeah.
Which is funny.
Lots of people wanted to see Kakashi in that role, despite the fact that he probably wasn't very well suited for it, based on his demeanor. So
it can be argued.
Us watching Deku, I want at some point to see, like, Deku, he's ranked 38th right now, and be like, he's made the list. Like, I know I'm talking about the inherent problems with it, but it still excites me, the idea of, like, what if he's, like, 38 and Bakugo's, like, 22? And you're like, wait, what? What did Bakugo do? And then Todoroki is like, well, I'm actually, like, 11th. And then like, what? Why are you 11th? You're 22 and 38. And then somehow we find Mineta is like, I'm the 53rd ranked. And you're like, what? You're useless. What's your problem? How do you get there? He hasn't been... They haven't shown him to be able to do anything, really. But he's in 1A for a reason. But so, I know, like, part of me wants to see them really dive in deep about some of the inherent flaws with this. And then the other part of me is like, it's shonen. It's a convention of the genre. It's a trope. I want to see Deku get number 1. Ideally, probably with Bakugo number 2 and then Todoroki number 3. And then Mineta number 4, because that just wouldn't make any sense at all. And I'd laugh.
And I know you posed the question, and I know we disagree. Well, I'm pretty sure we do. Is the fact that you said if the hero ranking system wasn't there, there wouldn't be a Stain, which I believe there still would be.
It would be... I feel like Stain's argument wouldn't have as much of a basis as it does. Because Stain as a character, and this is also, I guess we can roll this into the idea of what exactly is Stain, because so many people think of him as an anti-hero, which doesn't make any sense to me. But Stain as a character shows it shows that there are flaws in the hero system as it is right now. His whole thing is heroes should be doing this for the good reasons, like All Might. All Might has never really said, he's like, I want to be the pillar that our society can stand on. Mm-hmm. He's like, I want people to see me and feel safe and secure. Here now. Yeah, I am here. Like, you will feel safe, secure, and you will always feel that way because I will always be there. Mm-hmm. That was his number one driving goal. Mm-hmm. He didn't care that he was number 1. He doesn't show that he cared at all about that. And that's Stain is like, every single hero should try and be him.
But that's, I think, the only thing that's changing in this situation is you're taking a visual away. I think that, in all essence, everything would still be there. Even if they didn't have a ranking system, you had people that are just in the job because it's just what the quirk was meant for being a hero, even though they didn't want to be. People who half-ass it, people who call it in. Like, I can tell you how many jobs I've had where it's just like, oh yeah, I don't necessarily like X, Y, and Z, but it was just easy for me to get in the program. Where I feel like it would be the same thing. And Stain's thing is that he's looking for somebody like All Might, you're right, in the sense that they are selfless, in the sense that they care about others genuinely. Like, I find that's even hard to find in people who don't want to be heroes. Like, sure. I think we still run into that problem. So I think for Stain, it would still be there, and I think he would still be created because it's still in the system. They talk about him being in school and dropping out. I think he'd still see the same thing when he's in school, and then those people that just aren't on the same level as All Might. And then we run into what Jeff was talking about. Part of this discussion is the fact that a lot of people are very mistaken about the fact that Stain is an anti-hero, and he's not. He is very much, at most,
sympathetic villain?
Not even sympathetic. I'm trying to think of the word. It's a fanatic.
Villain.
A fanatic. Yeah. He is somebody who has taken an idea and went too far with it. He doesn't have his own code, and some people will say, well, he has a code of not hurting kids. But the second things go wrong or things get even remotely hairy, he maims them as well. There's nobody out of the reach for Stain. And really, he said that basically measuring up is measuring up to All Might. And just so we can see on the chart, very few even remotely close come to All Might. Even the next closest one is Endeavor, and he is total opposite to All Might in almost a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. And, like, he's not an anti-hero. There's nothing... I can't even think... Like, I think people misunderstand what an anti-hero is, especially when you compare it to somebody like Scar, where we have, like... There's so many differentiations. Like, if you want to see a good anti-hero, go watch Scar on Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. Like, I feel like that's a good representation. Whereas Stain is somebody, like I said, is a fanatic, not our protagonist, doesn't have... We don't want him to win in any aspect. We just hope... We understand where he's coming from, but it's not in a healthy way. Can I say that?
Yeah. I mean, there's a way to influence people without murdering a bunch of other ones. I get where he's coming from. There's a reason why there are things that are wrong with this system as it exists now. There's absolutely no question about it. There's an inherent flaw in a system that would reward people who the best part of their job that they do is that they market themselves really well.
Yeah, kind of just showing
especially
up.
Especially within the job of being a hero. Don't get me wrong, there are lots of other jobs out there. Part of being a really good athlete is being able to endorse yourself and get those endorsements and whatnot. But that doesn't allow you to negate your ability to do your real job.
Right.
Endorsements are, for the most part, a reward for being exceptional at your job. And there's so many heroes who are not at all exceptional at their job. They're just really good at looking good, looking the part, waving to the crowds, smiling, and things like that. And I think Stain does a very good job of showing that there's something wrong with this, and everybody should know that. If that was his whole thing, then fine. Make him... You could have made him a hero who has become, disillusioned with the hero system. And, he gets in the way of other heroes maybe because he's so determined to help, even if he's maybe not suited for that situation. He's like, I would rather a real hero come and try to save the day than this person who's just trying to get on the news. That would be a more effective way of maybe creating an anti-hero type Stain. As it is right now, Stain is, like you said, he's a fanatic who's just going to murder people until he hopes something changes. It won't change with that attitude. In fact, the only thing that it's done is it's enabled villains who Stain has said before, he's like, I think I hate you even more than I hate the heroes. And there is a complex sort of backstory there because he is a character who wanted to be a hero and failed in the current system. So it could be maybe, I don't know if we get a lot of backstory on exactly what he did that caused him to fail. Maybe there is...
On who to fail, sorry?
For Stain to have failed, essentially, in becoming a hero.
He didn't so much fail as he dropped out of school. He didn't like what they were teaching.
Yeah, so maybe we'll get some backstory later, which will make us sympathize a little bit with why he's went so fanatical. Perhaps he was simply told, kid, you're not marketable. You might be really good at this, but you look terrifying. The way in which you conduct yourself is horrifying. There isn't anything in here that we could really use in the hero business. And maybe that's why he drops out, because of that. That would effectively make him maybe more sympathetic in a way, but the current Stain that we have now is a fanatic who goes around murdering people and has a tiny bit of a point in the fact that there's something wrong here, but then he is more wrong than that entire system is. So,
well, that's the thing. He takes idealism too far to the point where he is a villain. The media then perpetuates the idea of what being a true hero is, which is almost like misconstruing of what he already had to say. Yeah. And that's the thing. No one but villains would glorify what he did. No hero, nobody, even civilians would say that was a good idea. No one...
Yeah, he's not inspiring.
No.
He inspires fear in the good guys and inspires, fanaticism in the villains.
Yeah.
So, I don't feel that the creator made him to be an anti-hero at all.
No,
they made him to be a complex villain and to show that...
Of what a fanatic is and how intense, even they said the heroes that were standing there were I felt like his intensity was scary. Because it's running into somebody I've had the problem in the past of having a stalker, and running into somebody that's fixated is terrifying. Mm-hmm. Not even in the sense of their ideas, even just the fact of being in the presence of somebody so fixated on that is terrifying. And I think that's the point that was coming across.
he was the opposing figure to All Might.
Right.
All Might comes in and you feel inspired, you feel a rush, you feel like I am safe. Stain shows up, you feel fear, you feel panic, you feel like nothing will ever be good again.
And that's the thing, he's so indiscriminate, where it's the fact of, like, nobody's really safe, because you have no idea what he's going to do, who he's going to attack. It's like, nobody there, you don't know how you measure up until he deems you not worthy. And that's the fact, you're like, I think I'm a good person, but you're like, I don't know if that means I'm safe from Stain. That doesn't mean anything.
Like, the only thing we can say is that he's only targeting heroes.
Like, even Ingenium, who objectively is a good hero, he just happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time, and he got maimed. Like, that's not even fair on any level.
No.
Like, on top of life sucking, like, that was not fair.
That's his thing, is that I guess the nice thing about Stain, if anything, is that he only attacks heroes, so he's not just out discriminately murdering everybody who doesn't match up. But he will kill and fight villains. He will... Essentially, anybody who's...
Well, the only villain we've seen him go after is Nomu, so we can't say much about that.
He went after Shigaraki as well.
Well, it's kind of because he pushed him too far. He wouldn't have gone out of his way to, go and maim him, you know what I mean?
Well, that's because he didn't see any point.
That's like, if you run into a serial killer and you decide to goad him on, I don't think he'll have any qualms killing you.
Fair enough. I just think he kind of viewed Shigaraki as like, you're not even worth me killing because it doesn't make a point. Like, what are you? Who are you?
It's just the fact that I think it's just so... Again, it's another mentality that he didn't understand. And he was like, I don't like what you're doing. It's nothing what I'm aligning with. And he's just in his own belief again. He doesn't see himself as a criminal. He just sees himself...
I think he sees himself as a criminal.
I think he's aware he's a criminal. Yeah. But the fact is, like you said, he's like, I'm not...
He's asking for All Might to come get him. He's like, I am a villain. I'm a criminal. Come get me. Because you're the only one who deserves it.
Yeah, but I mean in the sense where he doesn't see himself as a criminal, in the sense of, like, when Shigaraki is explaining himself, he's like, I'm not like that. As, like, he almost thinks, like, there's a different level of worse, or he's like, I'm not that level of bad. Where he's like, I'm doing my own thing. This is stupid sort of thing where...
Yeah, he doesn't... Yeah. Shigaraki doesn't
I don't think he sees himself so much as a criminal as just something that is perpetuated into
society, yeah.
Yeah. Long story short, he's not an anti-hero.
No. Stain he's a fanatic.
I could give you a full breakdown of a list, but I feel like we basically said why he's not an anti-hero. And like we said, a good example is Scar. To kind of get you a better perspective of what an anti-hero kind of looks like. Yeah.
That's Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. I think Sugar had mentioned it kind of in passing, but if you haven't seen it yet, that's the character of Scar is a tremendous example of creating a true anti-hero sort of counterbalance in the world to show kind of what's going on.
If you watch it, you'll understand.
I mean, in a lot of ways, Vegeta becomes an anti-hero, sort of, where he's almost just begrudgingly with the heroes because he's like, I mean, I have nothing better to do. I'm chasing the hero.
I was saying Vegeta's a little different in my mind, but that would be another podcast. But do you have any final thoughts about our questions or anything we missed?
Nothing in particular. I have questions more in just what the future is going to hold.
Philosophical questions I can answer.
A little bit. I guess my question to the listeners would be that I would love to hear, especially what they think about the hero ranking system. At the end of the day, I realize in the creation of My Hero Academia, it's probably going to just be the way in which we show power and show the progression of power. Mm-hmm. And lots of shonen have done it before.
Yeah.
Lots of shonen will continue to do it.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason why tournament arcs exist. This is just essentially a huge tournament arc where that's the end goal, is to be the number one hero in Japan, at least. But I want to see it expanded. I want to see who the heroes are in other areas of the world and see what those rankings are like. If All Might is like, I'm the number one hero in the world, or at least was, or if there's one in Canada who's like, I could beat All Might, I could destroy, I could fight him, I do a much better job of being a hero. I don't know if they're going to expand like that, but I want to know if people want to see something like that.
It'll be like the maple syrup smash.
I would love the maple syrup, and he's called like the Beaver or something like that.
The Beaver? No. God,
oh, no, not like that. The moose. The moose. And he's just Oh, could you imagine if a pro hero was made out of a moose from Canada? Yeah. He's called the Moose.
Made out of
and
a moose.
he's just...
It's not even as quirky as moose cats.
No. He's like Gang Orca, but he's a moose. And he can do all the things that a moose can do. Just giant antlers that can just
you never know.
pummel through buildings and stuff. Oh, it'd be crazy.
Wasn't there one like that on Zootopia who was like a big like moose for the newscaster or something? Maybe I'm thinking of something else.
No, that's that was for North America. Our newscaster was a moose as opposed to in China it was
that was a nod
it was a panda bear.
Towards My Hero Academia.
Potentially. But so yeah, that would be my question to our listeners, our viewers, our audience, our lovelies, whatever.
Or according to Jeff, our sugar cubes.
I can go with lovelies, even if we stole it from the Game Grumps. But
I wouldn't say stole. I'm sure a lot of people call their fan base lovelies. It's just what I like calling people.
That's true. You do. So that'd be my one question for our lovelies is: do you think that there is kind of an inherent flaw built into this, and will it come up in the series as a whole? Would there be anything you would want to ask the audience?
Do I? Yeah. I'm not much of a philosophical.
It doesn't have to be philosophical. Just any question that you have for them that you would love to hear other people's ideas on.
I just love to hear what you think of the series as a whole. If some of you have read it, I'd love to know some of your thoughts, especially about theories of there being a traitor, who you think that could be. I have my own theories on it, but I obviously won't talk about it right now. I'd love to know what you think. I've read a bunch of forums and so forth, and I've heard other people's thoughts, and I've heard literally everything, so I'd love to hear what you have to say. So I'm more planted in what's possible.
I'm planted on the idea of
clouds.
if this is going to go somewhere, or if they're just going to use it like how they probably should as a more lighthearted shonen.
Oh, Lordy Lou. Anywho, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Jeff, for joining me.
Of course.
So until next time, I'll see you later.